The Chinese girl wasn't expecting love this Christmas, until a lone rancher arrived with more than gifts. She remembered the smell of gingerbread, the laughter of cousins running around, and her mother carefully wrapping gifts with delicate ribbons. Christmas had always felt like a festival of joy, laughter, and love, but this year was different. Far from home, in a small American town where snow blanketed the streets and decorations were modest, Mei Lin felt the sharp pangs of loneliness that the holiday season often brought. She had moved to the town only a few months ago for work. A bakery near the town square had offered her a position as a pastry chef, and she had accepted it eagerly, hoping for a fresh start. Mei Lin loved baking, and the idea of sharing her skills in a new place excited her. Yet, the reality was far from the vibrant, bustling life she had imagined. Most days were quiet, the town's population small and the streets often empty. She had not yet made any close friends, and the cultural gap left her feeling isolated. Even the friendly greetings from neighbors could not fill the emptiness she carried inside. Every morning, Mei Lin woke before sunrise. She would dress warmly in layers, wrap a scarf around her neck, and step out into the cold, crisp air. The snow crunched under her boots as she walked to the bakery, her breath forming small clouds in the chill. Inside, the bakery was warm, filled with the rich aroma of bread, pastries, and coffee. Mei Lin loved the scent. It reminded her of her childhood, of mornings spent in her mother's kitchen, learning to fold dough and decorate cakes. But even in the warm, fragrant bakery, she felt the loneliness that came with being far from home. The bakery was small but cozy. Wooden shelves lined the walls, carrying rows of bread, cakes, and delicate pastries. A few tables were set near the window, where locals would sometimes come in to enjoy their morning coffee. Mei Lin worked quickly and quietly, her hands skillful as she kneaded dough and decorated cupcakes. She found comfort in the rhythm of her work, the way flour dusted her hands and the sweet scent of sugar filled the air. Yet, every so often, she would glance out the window at the empty streets and feel a deep longing for connection. Christmas decorations were starting to appear in the town, but they were modest compared to what Mei Lin was used to. A few homes had strings of lights, and the town square featured a small Christmas tree, decorated with simple ornaments. Mei Lin took it upon herself to decorate the bakery. She hung garlands over the windows, placed small candles on the tables, and even made a tiny paper Christmas tree to sit on the counter. She hoped that by bringing a little holiday cheer into her workplace, she could chase away the loneliness that shadowed her days. Despite her efforts, the sense of isolation lingered. Mei Lin often thought about her family back home. She missed her parents, her younger brother, and her grandparents. She missed the warmth of her mother's embrace, the laughter that filled the house, and the comforting routines of home. She called her family when she could, but the time difference made conversations brief and sometimes difficult. Each call left her both comforted and more aware of the distance that separated her from the life she had known. One evening, after a long day at the bakery, Mei Lin walked home slowly through the quiet streets. Snowflakes fell gently around her, catching the light from the street lamps. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and sighed. Christmas was only a few days away, yet she felt no excitement, no anticipation. The holiday that had always been magical now felt like a reminder of what she had lost, or perhaps what she had left behind. She wondered if she would ever feel the joy of Christmas again, so far from home and surrounded by strangers. To pass the time, Mei Lin threw herself into small projects at the bakery. She experimented with new recipes, trying to recreate the flavors she remembered from childhood. She baked red bean cakes and sweet dumplings, delicate pastries filled with flavors of her homeland. Sometimes, customers would stop by and compliment her work, and she felt a small spark of pride. Yet the recognition was fleeting, and the nights remained long and quiet. Mei Lin would return to her small apartment, a modest space she had rented near the bakery, and sit by the window, staring out at the snow-covered streets. She wondered if she would ever find a place where she truly belonged. Her apartment was simple but comfortable. A small sofa sat near the window, a tiny kitchen filled with essential utensils, and a bed covered in a soft quilt. Mei Lin had decorated it with a few personal touches, a small vase of flowers, a framed photo of her family, and a string of fairy lights that glimmered softly in the evening. She had even placed a small Christmas tree on the windowsill, decorated with handmade ornaments. It was her own attempt to create a sense of home in a foreign land, to make the cold, quiet apartment feel warmer, if only slightly. Evenings were the hardest. Mei Lin would prepare a simple meal, eat quietly, and then spend hours reading or listening to music. Sometimes she would watch old family videos on her laptop, laughing at the memories and crying quietly at the same time. She knew that feeling lonely during the holidays was natural, but the ache in her heart felt almost unbearable. She longed for companionship, for someone to share her days with, even if it was only for a short while. One particularly cold evening, Mei Lin sat by her window with a cup of tea, watching the snow fall softly on the streets below. The town was quiet, almost deserted, and the silence made her feel smaller, more isolated. She thought about the Christmases she had spent with her family, the joy and laughter that had filled her home. She wondered if she would ever experience something similar again in this distant town. And yet, despite the loneliness, there was a small flicker of hope within her. She reminded herself that life was unpredictable and that sometimes unexpected happiness could appear when she least expected it. The next day, Mei Lin returned to the bakery with renewed determination. She worked harder than ever, preparing special treats for the upcoming holiday. She arranged the pastries in attractive displays, added small festive touches to each tray, and made sure the bakery looked welcoming to anyone who walked in. She hoped that by bringing a bit of cheer to others, she might also find some for herself. The townspeople, while busy with their own preparations, began to notice her efforts. Some offered friendly smiles, a few complimented her work, and a few children lingered to watch her decorate cupcakes. Mei Lin felt a small warmth in her heart, realizing that even in a place far from home, kindness could be found. Despite these small moments of joy, the loneliness still lingered. Mei Lin often imagined what it would be like to have someone to share the holiday with, not just friends, but a companion who could understand her, who could make the quiet evenings feel less empty. She would watch couples walking hand in hand through the snow, hear laughter echoing from nearby homes, and feel a pang of longing. She knew that love was something rare, something that often arrived unexpectedly. She had almost given up hope, convincing herself that this Christmas, like so many others in a foreign land, would be spent in quiet solitude. But life has a way of surprising people. Mei Lin could not have known that in just a few days something, or someone, would arrive to change her holiday in ways she had never imagined. For now, she focused on her work, on the small joys she could create for herself and others. She continued to bake, to decorate, and to hope quietly in her heart that perhaps, this Christmas, her life might hold a little magic after all. And so, as the snow continued to fall softly over the town, Mei Lin prepared for another day at the bakery. She smiled politely at the few customers who stopped by, humming softly as she worked. Inside, she felt the mix of sadness and hope, the loneliness tempered by the small sparks of joy she found in her work. Little did she know, her life was about to take a turn, and this Christmas, she would discover that love can arrive when it is least expected, even in a place far from home, in a town she barely knew. The days passed slowly as Christmas approached. Mei Lin continued her routine at the bakery, kneading dough, shaping pastries, and decorating sweet treats. The town outside was calm, almost silent, except for the occasional crunch of snow under boots or the cheerful laughter of children sledding down small hills. Mei Lin noticed the townspeople bustling about, buying gifts and preparing for the holiday, but she still felt like an observer, standing on the edge of a world she had not yet fully entered. Then, one chilly morning, a stranger arrived in town. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a heavy coat and worn boots, his face shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to open spaces and hard work, yet his eyes, a warm shade of brown, held a kindness that immediately caught Mei Lin's attention. The townspeople greeted him politely, some nodding in recognition, but most gave him a respectful distance, as if he were a man who preferred solitude. His name was Luke, a rancher who lived on the outskirts of town. He had inherited a large property from his family, a spread of snow-covered fields, barns, and fences stretching as far as the eye could see. People knew him as a solitary man, a person who enjoyed his own company and preferred the quiet of the ranch to the chatter of town life. Yet, he had a reputation for being thoughtful and generous, quietly helping neighbors without seeking recognition. He had come into town to buy supplies for his ranch, deliver gifts to local children, and perhaps, in his own way, partake in the small celebrations of the community. Their first meeting happened quite by accident. Mei Lin was closing the bakery for the morning, carrying a tray of fresh pastries to the display outside. The streets were slick with ice, and she did not notice the thin sheet of frozen snow beneath her feet. One wrong step and she slipped, her tray tipping dangerously. Before she could regain her balance, a strong hand caught her by the arm, steadying her. "I've got you," said a calm voice. Mei Lin looked up to see the stranger standing there, his face partially hidden under the brim of his hat. His grip was firm but gentle, the kind of strength that made her feel safe immediately. She blinked, surprised, and managed a small, grateful smile. Thank you," she stammered. Her cheeks warmed, partly from the cold and partly from the sudden attention. "No problem. The streets are icy today," he said, his voice carrying a quiet sincerity that made her trust him instantly. He helped her adjust the tray, ensuring none of the pastries had fallen. Mei Lin noticed the faint smell of leather and pine that seemed to cling to him, earthy and natural, like the ranch he came from. "I'm Mei Lin," she said, offering a polite nod. "Luke," he replied with a small smile. "I'm new to town, well, not new, but I live out on the ranch. First time visiting the bakery." There was an ease to him, a quiet patience that made her feel at home in a way she had not experienced since arriving in the town. After that day, their paths crossed several more times. Sometimes, Luke would stop by the bakery for a coffee. Other times he would appear while Mei Lin was clearing snow from the front steps. Each encounter was brief, but each left a small spark of curiosity in her heart. She began to anticipate these moments, wondering who this mysterious rancher was and why his presence made her days feel lighter. Luke, too, noticed her. He admired the way she worked, how she handled the pastries with care, the way her eyes lit up when she smiled. There was something delicate about her, a quiet strength beneath the surface. He found himself looking forward to her laughter, her quick, polite conversations, and the gentle way she moved through her days. For a man who had spent most of his life in solitude, these small interactions were unexpected gifts, moments of connection that he had never realized he longed for. One afternoon, a snowstorm swept through the town, thick flakes drifting down and covering the streets in white. The bakery had closed early for safety, and Mei Lin stepped out into the blizzard, pulling her coat tightly around her. Her boots crunched through the fresh snow as she struggled toward her apartment, arms full of parcels she had prepared for some local customers. From the corner of her eye she saw him, Luke, trudging through the snow toward her. His hat was dusted with white and his coat was heavy with the storm, yet he moved with the steady confidence of someone used to weathering harsh conditions. "You shouldn't be walking alone in this," he called out, his voice carrying over the wind. Mei Lin smiled, half amused and half relieved. "I can manage. But thank you for worrying." There was a warmth in his presence, something steady and reliable that made the storm outside seem less harsh. As they reached the bakery steps, Luke handed her the last parcel. "Here you go. Don't want these getting wet," he said, smiling. Mei Lin thanked him, feeling a strange flutter in her chest. "That was very kind of you," she admitted, glancing at him. Luke shrugged lightly, as if it were nothing. "I like helping when I can. It feels right." His gaze lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary, and Mei Lin felt a blush creep across her cheeks. Over the next few days, their encounters became more frequent. Luke would stop by with small gestures, a hot drink when the bakery was busy, a plate of cookies from his ranch, or even a friendly smile when she least expected it. Each act, small as it was, made Mei Lin feel seen and valued. She realized that this stranger, this rancher from the outskirts of town, had begun to occupy her thoughts in a way that no one else had since she arrived. One evening, as Mei Lin was closing the bakery, Luke arrived with a small, wrapped package. She looked at it curiously. "It's nothing special," he said, almost shyly. "Just thought you might like it." "It's beautiful," she said softly, touched by the thoughtfulness. I just wanted you to have something for Christmas," Luke replied, his voice quiet but sincere. "A little reminder that not everyone is alone, even when it feels like it." She smiled at him, a genuine, heartfelt smile, and for a moment the cold outside seemed far away. "Thank you, Luke," she said. "It means a lot." She wondered if he was thinking about her too, and the possibility made her heart beat faster. Yet she reminded herself not to get carried away. After all, she had only known him for a short time, and her life was still filled with the challenges of being far from home. Luke, too, found himself thinking about Mei Lin. He admired her kindness, her dedication to her work, and the quiet resilience she displayed every day. He realized that in her presence, he felt a sense of peace he had not known in years, a feeling that made the long hours on the ranch and the solitude of his life seem less important. For the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of hope that perhaps connection, and even love, was possible, even in a place so far from the world he had known. One day, as they walked through the snow-covered streets together, Mei Lin laughed at a joke Luke made, the sound light and genuine. He looked at her and felt a swell of warmth in his chest. It was a simple moment, yet it held a significance neither of them could fully explain. They were two people from different worlds, meeting in a small town at Christmas, and yet the connection they felt was undeniable. That evening, Mei Lin returned home, carrying the star ornament with care. She placed it on her tiny Christmas tree, letting it shimmer in the soft light. She thought about Luke, about the unexpected kindness and attention he had shown her, and a small, cautious hope began to bloom in her heart. Perhaps this Christmas would not be as lonely as she had feared. Perhaps in this quiet town, something wonderful was beginning. As the snow continued to fall outside, Mei Lin sat by her window, sipping tea and watching the world turn white. She thought about the days ahead, about the approaching Christmas celebration in town, and about the stranger who had entered her life. A smile spread across her face, tentative but real. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine that this holiday might bring not just gifts, but something far more precious: connection, understanding, and perhaps even love. The town was alive with the quiet excitement of Christmas. Twinkling lights hung from lamp posts, small wreaths adorned doors, and the faint sound of carolers could be heard drifting through the snow-filled streets. Mei Lin could feel the change in the air, the townspeople moving about, the children laughing, and even the bakery seemed brighter as festive decorations filled every corner. Yet for Mei Lin, the excitement was mixed with a nervous anticipation. Christmas Eve was approaching, and she wondered how she would spend it. Would it be another quiet night in her small apartment, or might something unexpected finally happen? Luke had become a regular presence in her life over the past few days. Every morning he stopped by the bakery for a brief chat, a warm drink, or sometimes just a shared smile. These small gestures had begun to feel like a comforting rhythm in her day, a reminder that she was not completely alone. She looked forward to seeing him, though she tried not to admit it to herself. Mei Lin had learned to guard her heart in a world where she often felt isolated, but Luke's steady kindness was starting to break down the walls she had built. It was mid-afternoon on a crisp winter day when Mei Lin finished arranging a tray of freshly baked cinnamon rolls. The smell of baked bread and sweet spices filled the bakery, making the air feel warm and inviting. She glanced at the clock and realized that it was just about time for Luke's usual visit. True to form, he appeared at the door a few minutes later, brushing snow off his coat and hat. His eyes crinkled in a warm smile as he stepped inside. "Afternoon, Mei Lin," he said, his voice calm but friendly. "Smells amazing in here. I just finished baking these cinnamon rolls. Want to try one?" Compliments had always been rare for her in this new town, and coming from Luke, they felt genuine. "Thank you," she said softly. "I just try to make things nice for the people around me." It wasn't just the friendly conversation. It was the way he listened, the way he seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, and the calm reassurance of his presence. She realized that she looked forward to these visits more than she cared to admit. A few days later, the town announced a small Christmas Eve gathering at the community hall. It was a modest celebration, with hot cocoa, cookies, and a tree decorated with simple ornaments. Mei Lin felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had been invited by the bakery owner, who encouraged her to join the townspeople for the event. Part of her wanted to go; it would be an opportunity to meet more people and feel a part of the town. But another part of her hesitated, unsure how she would fit in. To her surprise, Luke appeared at the bakery the morning of the gathering. He carried a small package in his hands, wrapped in plain brown paper. "I thought you might like this," he said quietly, handing it to her. Mei Lin looked at the package, curious. "What is it?" she asked. "Open it and see," Luke replied, a hint of a smile on his lips. Carefully, she unwrapped the package, revealing a small, hand-painted ornament in the shape of a snowflake. It was delicate and beautiful, the kind of ornament that could be cherished for years. Mei Lin's eyes softened as she held it. "It's beautiful, Luke," she said. Her voice carried a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "I've never received something like this before." It was the thoughtfulness behind the gift, the effort he had made just for her, that touched her deeply. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Thank you," she whispered. "It really means a lot." The community hall was cozy, filled with the soft glow of string lights and the smell of baked goods. Children ran around laughing, parents chatted, and the townspeople seemed genuinely happy. Mei Lin felt a little out of place at first, but the warmth of the room slowly made her feel more comfortable. And then she saw him, Luke, standing near the tree, holding a cup of hot cocoa. His eyes met hers, and he gave her a small, encouraging smile. Her heart fluttered at the sight, and she felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She walked over to him, and they fell into easy conversation, as if the rest of the room had disappeared. They talked about their favorite Christmas memories, shared laughs at small misunderstandings from their past, and even compared notes on baking. Mei Lin found herself opening up about her life in China, her family, and the loneliness she had felt since moving to the town. Luke listened attentively, never interrupting, offering a reassuring presence that made her feel safe. At one point, they stepped outside for a short walk in the snow. The town square was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of lampposts and Christmas lights. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, covering the streets and rooftops in a blanket of white. Mei Lin shivered slightly, and Luke instinctively offered his coat. "Thank you," she said softly, draping it over her shoulders. "You're welcome," he replied, his voice calm and steady. "You should stay warm." Back inside the hall, they joined the other townspeople for the final moments of the celebration. Children sang a few carols, families exchanged small gifts, and laughter filled the air. Mei Lin felt a sense of belonging she had not experienced in months. She realized that Luke's presence made her feel connected, seen, and appreciated. For the first time since arriving in the town, she felt the warmth of friendship, and perhaps something more, during the holidays. Later that evening, Luke and Mei Lin found themselves helping clean up after the gathering. They worked side by side, their hands occasionally brushing, sending small sparks of awareness through Mei Lin's heart. She noticed how naturally they moved together, how their conversations flowed without effort. There was a growing bond between them, a silent understanding that went beyond words. As they finished their tasks, Luke handed her a small cup of hot cocoa. "Here," he said, "you've had a long day. You've been very thoughtful today. I like being around you." As they walked through the snow-covered streets, Mei Lin felt a quiet excitement she had not known in months. She thought about the ornament he had given her, the warmth of his presence, and the shared moments that had brought them closer. For the first time since moving to this small town, she felt a sense of hope and anticipation for what Christmas might bring. When they finally returned to the bakery, they paused for a moment at the doorway. Luke looked at her, his eyes soft. "Merry Christmas, Mei Lin," he said, his voice low and sincere. "Merry Christmas, Luke," she replied, a smile spreading across her face. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet magic of the snowy town and the warmth of their shared connection, Mei Lin realized that this Christmas had already become special. It was not about the decorations, the gifts, or even the festivities. It was about the small gestures, the quiet kindness, and the unexpected bond that had begun to grow between her and Luke. She felt a sense of joy and comfort she had not thought possible in a foreign town. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine that love, quiet and gentle, might be waiting just around the corner. Christmas morning arrived quietly in the small town. Snow lay thick on the rooftops and streets, glistening in the early sunlight. The world seemed peaceful, as if holding its breath in the magic of the holiday. Mei Lin woke in her apartment with a gentle excitement she had not felt in years. Her small Christmas tree sparkled, the ornament Luke had given her catching the light in soft reflections. She held it in her hands for a moment, smiling. That small gift, so simple and thoughtful, had begun to change her entire holiday. Her thoughts immediately went to Luke. She remembered the way he had smiled at her yesterday, the warmth of his voice, the quiet way he had made her feel seen. She realized that she looked forward to spending time with him more than anything else this Christmas. A small flutter of anticipation filled her chest, mixed with nervousness. What if she went to see him and it wasn't as special as she imagined? But deep down, she knew that whatever happened, she wanted to be near him today. As if sensing her thoughts, she found a note slipped under her door. The handwriting was familiar, strong yet gentle. "If you're free, I'd love for you to come to the ranch this morning. There's breakfast waiting, and I hope we can spend a quiet Christmas together. Luke." She felt a surge of happiness. Someone had thought of her, taken the time to invite her into his world and wanted to share this special day. After a moment of hesitation, she smiled, carefully dressed in warm clothes, and set out for the ranch, excitement and curiosity guiding her steps. The journey to Luke's ranch was quiet and serene. Snow-covered fields stretched out on either side of the narrow road, the landscape glistening in the soft morning light. Mei Lin felt a sense of wonder as she approached the large wooden gates that led to his property. Everything about the ranch seemed peaceful, untouched, and welcoming in its simplicity. The smell of wood smoke and pine drifted through the air, and she could hear the distant sound of animals stirring in the barns. When she reached the main house, Luke was waiting outside, his wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow over his face, though his warm smile was unmistakable. "Merry Christmas," he said, his voice soft and kind. "I'm glad you came." A simple table was set for breakfast, with plates of fresh pastries, warm bread, fruit, and mugs of steaming tea and cocoa. Everything was laid out thoughtfully, reflecting Luke's quiet care. Mei Lin felt touched by the effort he had put into making her feel welcome. They sat down together, and for a while there was a comfortable silence, broken only by the soft sounds of birds outside and the occasional clink of cups. Mei Lin felt a gentle contentment settle over her. It was a stark contrast to the loneliness she had felt just days ago. Here in the quiet of the ranch, with snow falling softly outside, she felt as though she had found a place where she truly belonged. As they ate, they talked about simple things, The ranch, the animals, the beauty of the snow-covered landscape, and small memories from past Christmases. Mei Lin shared stories of her childhood in China, of the way her family celebrated, the traditions, the laughter, and even the small arguments that always ended in hugs. Luke listened with quiet attention, asking questions and laughing along at the funny moments. His presence was calm, steady, and encouraging, and Mei Lin felt herself opening up in ways she hadn't allowed in a long time. After breakfast, Luke suggested a walk through the fields. They bundled up in heavy coats and scarves, stepping out into the crisp, bright morning. The snow crunched under their boots, and the air smelled faintly of pine and frost. Mei Lin couldn't help but marvel at the beauty around her, the vast, open fields, the gentle hills, and the way the sunlight made the snow sparkle like diamonds. She realized she had never seen anything so peaceful, and she felt grateful to be sharing it with someone who seemed to appreciate it as much as she did. They walked side by side, talking softly about hopes, dreams, and the small joys of life. Mei Lin felt a sense of closeness growing between them with every step. It was not dramatic or sudden. It was quiet, steady, and natural. She noticed the little things about Luke, the way he listened, how his eyes lit up when he spoke about something he cared about, the easy laugh he shared when she teased him lightly. She felt drawn to him, not just because of his kindness, but because of the comfort and understanding he offered without needing anything in return. At one point, they paused by a small frozen pond. The sunlight reflected off the ice and the world seemed suspended in perfect stillness. Luke turned to Mei Lin, his eyes serious but gentle. "Mei Lin," he said softly, "I want you to know I've really enjoyed spending time with you, more than I expected even. You've made these past days better than I could have imagined." She looked into his eyes, seeing sincerity and warmth. "Luke, I feel the same," she admitted quietly. "I didn't think I'd feel like this not so soon, but I really enjoy being with you." The cold air seemed to fade away, replaced by a warmth that neither of them had expected. It was a moment of quiet understanding, where words were almost unnecessary, and the heart spoke more clearly than anything else. After a few minutes, they continued their walk, laughing softly at small jokes and playful comments. Mei Lin realized that she had never felt so comfortable and happy with someone outside her family. Luke's presence made her feel safe, appreciated, and seen in a way she had never experienced before. Every shared glance, every brush of their hands, seemed to deepen the bond forming between them. When they returned to the house, Luke suggested they help in the barn. Mei Lin hesitated at first, unsure how she would manage, but he encouraged her gently. Together, they fed the animals, cleaned stalls, and laughed at the playful antics of the farm animals. Mei Lin was surprised at how natural it felt to be working alongside Luke, sharing simple tasks and enjoying each other's company. There was a sense of teamwork, of connection, and of joy in the simplicity of the moment. By the time they finished, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the snow-covered fields. They stood outside, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. Mei Lin felt a sense of peace she had never known, the combination of Luke's company, the quiet beauty of the ranch, and the magic of the Christmas season wrapping around her heart like a soft blanket. Luke turned to her, his expression earnest. "Mei Lin," he said, "I know this might seem sudden, but I feel like something special is happening between us. I didn't expect it, but I think I've started to care for you, more than I thought possible." "Luke, I care for you too," she whispered. A soft smile spread across his face and he gently took her hand. It was a simple gesture, yet it spoke volumes. They stood together in the quiet of the snow-covered ranch, hands intertwined, hearts open, and the world around them fading into a gentle blur. Mei Lin felt a warmth she had never experienced before, a sense of belonging and love that filled the spaces of loneliness she had carried for so long. As darkness fell, they returned to the house, lighting a small fire in the fireplace. They sat together on a blanket, sipping cocoa and talking quietly. Mei Lin felt the day's joy settle into her heart, a calm, steady happiness that seemed to grow with every passing moment. She realized that this Christmas, she had found something far more precious than gifts or decorations. She had found connection, understanding, and love. The night ended with them standing by the window, watching snowflakes drift lazily from the sky. Mei Lin rested her head on Luke's shoulder, feeling his steady heartbeat and the warmth of his presence. It was a quiet, perfect moment, one that she would remember forever. She realized that love could arrive unexpectedly, quietly, and gently, transforming ordinary days into something extraordinary. And so, Mei Lin's first Christmas far from home became the most memorable one of her life. It was not filled with the bustling streets or crowded celebrations she had known in China. Instead, it was filled with quiet beauty, shared laughter, gentle gestures, and the unexpected arrival of love in the form of a kind, thoughtful rancher. Mei Lin knew, in her heart, that this Christmas would mark the beginning of something beautiful, a story of connection, hope, and a love that neither of them had anticipated but both cherished deeply.